Hello and welcome to Break Check. Today we're going to be covering the European Regional Number 1 for the spring split. As you can see, we're going to start with the European Closed Quals. And I was not able to catch European Closed Quals live because it happens during the North American RLCS. It happens on the same weekend, and unfortunately the times overlap. But we will go ahead and take a look at what transpired during the closed qual. So, first up, we got Luminosity Gaming coming through in first place. SK Gaming coming in second. Third through fifth is Wild, SUH, and Wolves Esports. Sixth through eighth is Liquid, Misfits, and BS+. The first thing that we can mention is obviously Team Liquid qualifying into the main event. We know that Liquid has had a team for a while. They've had a few different iterations of the teams, and they have just struggled to find any level of success. They decided to hang on to Acronic, who is a young, talented player, and then they grabbed two other young, talented players that were not 15 at the time of signing, which meant that they were not eligible to compete in RLCS events. So Liquid kind of opted to sit out for a split and kind of rebuild and just focus on the future. And I personally really like the call from Liquid. I think it's a great idea because just, you know, they want to stay in the scene. They want to have a good Rocket League team. Scrambling to make it work during the middle of a season, I think it would have been a tough way to go about things. And so grabbing the couple of 14-year-olds, Oski and Atau, I think it provides a bright future for that Liquid squad. And we saw them, like I said, we saw them in this main event this past weekend. We also, as I mentioned, we had SK, which features Fruity, longtime RLCS player. We had Wolves Esports, features Tadpole, once again, longtime RLCS player. And BS+ competition featuring Freaky, again, longtime RLCS veteran. Those three players that I had just mentioned struggled throughout this newer format of the esport between RLCS Season X and RLCS Season 21-22. But we see them here, once again, finding their way into the main event. Luminosity, this is kind of what we've come to expect from this squad. They are one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most strong teams that is still having to fight through this closed qualifier. So no surprise here from Luminosity. We have SK, who, again, like I said, they've been struggling. We find them a lot of time, you know, being bounced in closed qual, but sometimes even going 0-3, you know, not even making it to round 4 or round 5. And so to see them take down, by the way, 3 main event regular teams here in Misfits, Williams Resolve, and 00 Nation. I mean, incredible performance from SK. Even if they didn't do so well in the main event, I think this is progress. This is something they should be proud of because these are, I mean, in all reality, this is SK punching up, right? This is not really their peers. These teams, more times than not, make it into the main event and sometimes even make it deep into the main event, whereas SK has struggled to do just that. So I think even if we had a poor performance in the main event, SK should be proud of this. We got Wild as a team that I think this is their first time qualifying into the main event. I don't know if all 3 of these players are like a rookie appearance. I don't know if they have ever been in main events on different teams or whatnot. But I do think this Wild roster, this is kind of the first time qualifying. And we got Crispy, Simus, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, and then Acro. So good performance there. Again, you know, taking down 00 Nation, which is a regular. They end up losing to Luminosity, but they take down Bricks and Alpha Gaming, or Alpha AF, excuse me. So 2 pretty good rosters there. Great performance from Wild. We got SUH coming in with a 3-1, and this is a team that we're going to talk about a little bit more throughout the rest of this podcast. SUH, they dropped to 00 Nation, and then they take down 3, again, pretty regular RLCS main event attendees here in Guild, Williams Resolve, and Na'Vi. So SUH looking strong in this closed qual as well. Wolves Esports, once again, impressive run. We see them go to Game 5 every single match here, but these are 3 very high-quality wins, and the loss to 00 Nation, you know, you can't hang your head too low about that. It's a quality team. Liquid, They drop to Na'Vi in Game 5. They take down Heroic. They drop to Wolves in Game 5. Then they take down Bricks and 0-0 Nation to qualify. So props to Liquid. This is, again, a young team with not very much experience. And it's just due to the fact that they haven't had the opportunities to play in these main events and gain that experience. I think this team is very talented individually, and I am anticipating them continuing to improve as they get more experience in these main events and at the professional level. We got Misfit. Misfits, I think, is normally a team that you would expect to see up here with Luminosity. Definitely one of the stronger teams in the closed qual. And wow, this was rough. This reminds me of Rogue throughout the first regional qualification in North America, where they just really got off to a slow start and lost to a team that they probably shouldn't lose to. And kind of bounced back and had a little bit of back and forth throughout the Swiss stage. But Misfits definitely cutting it close, taking Guild to Game 5 here in Round 5. So, tough performance. But something I continue to say is it's the mark of a good team when things are not clicking, it's not going well, and you can still accomplish your goal, which here, it doesn't matter if you go through 3-0 or 3-2. It's not that big of a difference. The main thing is you want to qualify. Then we got BS Plus competition, making it through in round number 5. They get a win in round 1. They lose back-to-back to Luminosity and Misfits. Again, those are two, in my opinion, probably two of the strongest teams in this closed qualifier. So you can't hang your head about that. And then we got a 3-1 win here against Alpha AF and a 3-2 win against Na'Vi. So pretty quality wins here. We got Guild, unfortunately, missing out. Guild, I think Guild will be another team that you throw in with Misfits and Luminosity. Same with 0-0. These are teams that you would expect to, and potentially even Na'Vi, these are teams that you would expect to qualify. They all three end up in round 5, and they got tough matchups, Guild going against Misfits, that's a tough round 5 matchup. 0-0 going against Liquid, that's a tough round 5. Na'Vi probably should have won this. I think more times than not, you'd probably predict them to win that, but apparently that was a tough competition as well, a tough draw. So anyways, these teams, I'm sure they're disappointed in this, and hopefully they're going to bounce back strong in the future. We've got Alpha AF, Bricks, and Williams Resolve being eliminated in round 4. Williams Resolve is a tough one as well. They ended up having Radisson taken off of their team, kind of poached by Vitality. And I think that is definitely going to hurt that team's performances and strength. I think Williams Resolve was one of those teams that was kind of floating around between that 7 to 12 area. Main event, mainstays, they were in there almost every main event, and they would go deep into the main event sometimes. But it looks like they're going to have some rebuilding to do, filling that position with Radisson leaving. Then we got Heroic and Pepitos Canyon going 0-3. And, you hate to see this. I am a big fan of the Heroic squad. I love the players on that team. Big fan of Verge. Unfortunately, just not able to put it together in this close qual, and hopefully they can bounce back stronger in the future. One last point that I do want to mention here with the European close qual is that there obviously are 8 spots for grab for the main event. And something that is absolutely insane is that 6 of those 8 spots were grabbed by teams that came from the open qualification system. The only 2 teams that auto-qualified into this closed qualifier are Misfits and Luminosity that were able to make it into the main event, right? SK from open qual, Wild, Suh, Liquid, BS Plus, all from open qual. And so there's this ongoing discussion about Europe, the region, and the depth of the region. And then some people want to argue that it's inconsistency, it's this, it's that. I don't see how you can argue that this is a very, very deep region. I think there is a ton of talent in this region. And I'll make a prediction here. We talk about this occasionally on the stream. I am anticipating quite a bit of talent consolidation in this offseason. Obviously, you've got some strong players individually on each, of these rosters throughout the closed qual. I imagine we're going to see some of those strong players leave their respective rosters and join together to kind of increase their odds at making main events. And like I said, just consolidate that talent. So Europe, definitely a region chock full of wonderful, talented players. And I think this is a great example of exactly that. So with that being said, I do want to talk just a little bit about this offseason. We got a couple of roster shakeups, a couple of transfers between teams, players leaving X roster, joining Y roster, and so on and so forth. We also have some of these rosters being picked up. Obviously, Queso who is now Moist Esports, had a very successful winter split for whatever reason. Maybe it was cost, maybe it was who knows what it is, but they ended up splitting ways with Queso, and so they were kind of a free agent roster for a while. And Moist Esports, if you are familiar with Moist Critical, a very large creator, he has started his own organization. The roster of Rise, Vatira, and Joyo have been picked up by Moist Esports, and I personally am very, very excited about that organization joining Rocket League Esports officially. I think it's very common knowledge that he has wanted to get into Rocket League Esports. He signed Rizzo as a content creator. They put a bid out for the true neutral roster at the beginning of the season, which ended up signing with Complexity. And I think it all shook out in a great manner because, in all honesty, I think this is a stronger roster, a great point for Moist Esports to enter the scene. And we saw, we've seen them performing well throughout the winter split and at the winter major, and they have continued to perform well even in this first regional here. We also had Solary. That was the SUH roster that I mentioned a little bit ago. That is Tho, Mike Boy, Oli, Coach JG, and Solary picked that team up. I'm sure they had the details of the contract and everything worked out a little bit earlier, but they picked them up kind of the day of or the day before the event started. So right before this regional began, Solary grabbed the squad, and we'll get to that in a moment, but that was a very, very timely pickup to say the least. We also do want to mention some of the shakeups that have gone on around the scene. BDS, probably the most prestigious, I don't know if that's the right word, but the most, insane pickup. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but we got Seiko joining Extra and Monkey Moon for this third split of the season and World Championships, provided they qualify, which I think they will. And wow, we'll talk to their results in a moment, but goodness gracious, they looked incredible. We had Endpoint obviously having to replace Seiko. Since Seiko left Endpoint and went to BDS, they actually have grabbed Archie. Archie was a player for Semper. Now he has moved over to fill in the shoes of Seiko for Endpoint. And one tiny asterisk here is Archie is on loan. So at the end of the season, if Archie and Semper agree to it, he can actually return to the Semper. In Semper, filling in the shoes of Archie is Exotic, another French player. So now we have a full French roster here. And Semper looked great in this most recent event as well. We've got Vitality. As I just mentioned a few moments ago, they picked up Radisson from the Williams Resolve roster. Once again, full French-speaking roster. And Vitality showed some improvement as well. K-Corp grabbing Noli. Noli ended up a free agent in this offseason. Carmine Corp tried out a few different players. I think they tried out Chaussette from Semper. They ended up going with Noli, and K-Corp saw some improvement as well. The last one, I guess, worth mentioning is Solary, which not really pick up, but this team just kind of threw themselves together. Oli and Tho, I think, have played together in the past. Mike Boy and JG have been on a couple of teams together. Obviously, JG being the coach. And this team got together. Oli, very dangerous player. Tho, very aggressive. And Mike Boy, a wonderful piece to the puzzle as well. And like I said, we'll get into this in a moment, but Solary looked very, very good in this event. And then I guess the last one is Liquid. This is not a new roster, but it is kind of a new team in RLCS because they just weren't eligible to play, and it's a chronic Oski and Atau, Coach Expeer. Liquid, I expect them to continue to perform better and better throughout these events as they gain more experience. So let's jump right into the main event, kind of talk about what we saw, what went down, and we'll look at this bracket here for just a moment. So, Moist, take down BS Plus. Semper, take down K-Corp. Solary, take down Dig, and this is the beginning of the Solary run here. Endpoint take down Wild, Liquid take down EG. A little bit of a surprise here. You never know what Liquid is going to bring. We haven't seen them performing in these main events. We just don't know. A little bit of an unknown there, and they proved to everyone that they've got some prowess to them. Misfits end up falling in a 3-0 sweep to Team Vitality round 1. BDS takes Wolves, and Luminosity takes down SK. So not too much of a shakeup here. I think Solary and Dig is probably a little bit surprising to many of us. And then Liquid, again, a little bit surprising, but I think this is not too crazy. And we look down here in the lowers. K-Corp winning round 1. Dig winning round 1. Misfits eliminating EG. So, unfortunately, EG don't get a single win in this event, and that's obviously very detrimental to their potential making the Spring Major, which is obviously detrimental to them qualifying for Worlds. So, this is a really tough performance here, a tough way to start the Spring Split for EG. And then we got Wolves knocking out SK. So, SK, unfortunately, going 2 and out as well. We'll jump back up here to the winner's side or upper side. We got Moist taking down Simper. This is a game 5, so Simper looking good. You know, I think a lot of us, including myself, were a little bit concerned for Simper losing Archie, and we know what kind of player Archie is and what he brings to the table, and so very proud of Simper and their performance so far, and we'll see them. They continue to perform well throughout the lowers as well. Solary continuing their run, take down Endpoint. Liquid fall to Vitality, and BDS take down Luminosity. Poor Luminosity just cannot escape BDS. They play them seemingly every single event within like the first round, or they're in their group or something like that. And so anyways, tough draw for Luminosity. So we'll jump down here to the lowers, and we got, unfortunately, Luminosity not able to put it together, and K-Corp takes him down, lower round 2. So Luminosity, they win one match, and then they fall out, getting beaten by BDS and K-Corp, and they're out of the event. Similar to EG, obviously, very much detrimental to their chances to making this spring major. We've got Team Liquid taking down Dig, and this one I think is a surprise. Liquid, I have a lot of faith in them. I think they're going to grow and continue to be a better and better team, but just didn't perform up to par in this event, and I think there are reasons outside of the game as to why. Probably difficult for some of these players to focus, and I'm not going to touch on it, but if you want to know more about it, go look on Twitter, follow those players, check them out. We got Endpoint versus Misfits, and again, a little bit of a shocker here. Obviously, this could go either way. Misfits is a solid team, but they take down Endpoint in lower round 2, and now the same thing I said. Endpoint is in a tough spot here if they're wanting to qualify for the spring major. They did not put themselves in a great position to start off the split. Then we got Simper taking down Wolves in game 5. We're going to continue on with lowers. K-Corp, they take down Liquid 3-1. And then Misfits take down Simper 3-1. So Misfits is a team that I'm excited about their performance in this regional. Misfits is just a team that all season we've seen glimpses of hope. We've seen them show some strength from time to time. But we also have just come to expect, I hate to say it, but we've come to expect them to choke. Unfortunately, anytime the stakes get big or intense, the situation is a critical one. Misfits don't seem to show up, and so I'm excited that they got off to a good start in this first event of the spring split. Then we got the upper semifinals. We got Moist taking down Solary in game 7, and once again, Solary, they don't get the dub here, but taking Moist to game 7 is something to be proud of, especially, like I said, this is their first event in RLCS as a new team. So great performance so far. Vitality end up losing to BDS 4-1. And in hindsight, we just can't blame Vitality for this because BDS has looked absolutely insane throughout this entire event. Solary fall down to lowers. They take down Carmine Corp, knock them out. And Vitality finally end the Misfits run, knock them out in game 7. But once again, Misfits needs to be proud of where they're at right here. They've put themselves in a pretty good position to continue pursuing that spring major here throughout the rest of the split. So we got Solary, Vitality. Solary take down Vitality. So now Solary's top 3. First event as a team, top 3. That is absolutely insane. And as I said before, Solary picked up that roster just a few days before this event started. So big brain play from the Solary organization. Solary does end up, let me jump up here. BDS take down Moist in game 7. So BDS will continue on through the upper side. Moist fall to lower bracket final, and they take down Solary in a 4-1 fashion. And then come into the finals, and BDS just sweep. BDS just absolutely sweep. I mean, I don't know what to say about this. We'll talk about this Solary roster for just a moment. Top 3. Once again, let's look at this. So, Mike Boy, Oli, and they had bounced around a few teams. We saw a couple of these players on Rix, GG earlier in the season. We saw a couple of these players on Heroic earlier this season. And those are 2 rosters that have struggled to make it into main events. And now these players get together and they win this Dacia Spring Electric tournament, which was an 18 and older tournament. So not every single player that's in RLCS was eligible to play in that, but it's kind of a an off-season downtime tournament that went on, and definitely had some high-level teams in it. And they end up, and this was before they got signed to Solary. They were SUH under that name, and they end up taking the dub there. And then they drop into this first main event ever as a team, and they place top 3, taking down Dignitas, taking down Endpoint, taking Moist to game 7, taking down K-Corp, taking down Vitality. I mean, Solary is on a tear right here. This is a really, really good performance, again, especially for the first time in the main event as a squad. So, in my opinion, very bright future for that Solary squad. And then we do have to just talk about BDS for a moment. Is BDS back? Are they going to be dominant like they were in RLCS Season X? Obviously, BDS decides to bench Mark. There were a lot of people that were kind of flustered and frustrated about that. Understandably so, because BDS has had wonderful results. A little bit of a fall off here or there, you know, a 9 through 12 performance in a regional. Not as good of a performance in the winter major that they would like to achieve. And, you know, some people were saying, hey, that's you're jumping to conclusions there. Give the team some more time. They've had such a good run as a team of three for so long. A couple of poor, not even poor results, but a couple of just lackluster results for that squad, a squad of that caliber and of that, you know, just legacy where they just win or top three, top four, almost every single event. People were saying, wait a second, don't go crazy right there. Don't, you know, we don't need to kick a player just because of a couple bad events. And I understand where they're coming from, but when you have a player like Seiko that becomes available and that roster will now become a full French-speaking roster, everybody gets to speak in their native language, I understand why they want to make that change. And it's nothing to do with Mark or an underperformance from Mark. I think Mark is still a fantastic player and will probably find himself on a top 8 team come next season. But Seiko is just on a different level. And we saw them put that on display in this main event. Like I said, 3-1 Wolves, 3-1 Luminosity, 4-1 Vitality. They go to Game 7 here against Moist, right? Moist is a great team. Nothing to scoff at. And then they come back and they straight 4-0 sweep Moist. BDS did not drop a single series. And they were really only challenged by Moist here in the upper final. So, with that being said, I will go ahead and say that I think BDS is back. I think we're not going to see them fall out of the top 3 in regionals. And I would not be surprised if we see them perform very well at the Spring Major and at the World Championship. With the addition of Seiko, BDS is absolutely back. And that's going to do it for today's show. This is Break Check, a Rocket League Esports podcast. If you like what you see, come back for more every Wednesday following events. Thank you all for being here, and we will catch you next time.